Hip-hop has a mythology, and at the center of it is the come-up. The story of escaping poverty through bars and beats. Some of the biggest names in rap, though, went home to mansions, trust funds, and parents whose net worths had more zeros than a platinum plaque. From a Beastie Boy surrounded by million-dollar Rothko paintings, to a Rack City rapper whose parents drove Range Rovers, to a country rap star who grew up on a 5.5-acre estate with a private horse stable. The gap between the image and the reality is something else. So let's get into the rappers you had no idea were born rich. When people hear the name Ricky Hill, most think of a face covered in tattoos, wreathed in smoke, doing everything possible to distance himself from the world he was born into. Ricky Hill, who formerly went by the name Rich Hill, is the son of fashion mogul Tommy Hilfiger. That is the kind of sentence that reframes everything you thought you knew about a rapper's backstory. Ricky grew up in the suburbs of Connecticut and was surrounded by rich, famous people, including rappers who were attracted to his father's clothing line. He was not watching hip-hop from the outside. He was watching it from the inside of a penthouse. The rappers whose lyrics he would eventually try to emulate were the same people showing up to his father's fashion events, shaking hands with Tommy Hilfiger, wearing Tommy Hilfiger. The culture came to him. He did not have to go find it. Now, getting a major label deal is something thousands of aspiring rappers never accomplish. In Ricky's case, he was a teenager whose father was one of the most connected men in fashion. Whether or not his name opened the door, the perception was always going to be that it did. And that perception followed him like a shadow. In 2011, just as his rap career was taking off, thanks to a record deal with Warner Bros., Rich did a now infamous interview with The Observer. The details that emerged from that interview painted a picture that was wildly at odds with any street credibility he was trying to build. He revealed that he was living in his father's apartment in the Plaza Hotel in New York City. The Plaza, one of the most iconic, most luxurious addresses in the entire country. He also admitted to being banned from all but one music studio. The reasons hinted at a lifestyle spiraling in chaotic directions, a pattern that would continue. Hill's rap lyrics are about girls, love, loss, being high, and that's about it. He's done the rehab thing, had a high-profile relationship with pop star Rita Ora, and been arrested for punching a nightclub bouncer. On paper, those are the credentials of a rapper living hard. In context, those are the turbulences of a rich kid careening through a world with no financial consequences. Ricky Hill emerged in the mid-2010s with Works SYLDD in 2014 and Candy Painted Coffins a year later. The Manhattan-born rapper took a lengthy break before eventually releasing the record Same Shit Different Day in early 2021. His output was sporadic, and the reception was always filtered through the lens of his last name. Ricky Hill has made more than 18 mixtapes, but rap aficionados have a hard time taking him seriously because of his lavish upbringing. That is the central tension of Ricky Hill's existence in hip-hop. He had access to everything: studios, connections, funding, a lifestyle most rappers only dream of, and still could not shake the label of being Tommy Hilfiger's kid playing dress-up in the rap game. The silver spoon was lodged too deep, and the streets, metaphorical or otherwise, never forgot it. If you only know the Beastie Boys from Fight for Your Right, three guys spraying beer and flipping tables, you would never guess that one of the founding members grew up in one of the most culturally elite households in New York City. He grew up on the Upper West Side surrounded by artwork, including pieces by Willem de Kooning, Mark Rothko, and Barnett Newman. Those are not posters from a college dorm. Those are some of the most important and valuable works of art produced in the 20th century. Mike D did not grow up wealthy in the nice car in the driveway sense. He grew up wealthy in the Rothko paintings hanging in the living room sense. He attended the arts-oriented St. Anne's School and New York City's Walden School. It was at these schools that Mike D's creative instincts were nurtured and where the seeds of the Beastie Boys were planted. In 1979, when he was 14 years old, Diamond co-founded the band The Young Aborigines. In 1981, Adam Yauch, aka MCA, a friend and follower of the band, became their bass player, and on the suggestion of their then guitar player, John Barry, the band changed their name to the Beastie Boys. By 1983, Adam Horovitz, Ad Rock, joined, Barry left, and their sound began to shift away from hardcore punk to hip-hop. And here's where the story takes an ironic turn. Their parents knew the truth, far from their self-mythologizing image as the nastiest group in the world. Mike D, Ad Rock, and MCA were just sweet, smart, and polite upper-middle-class Jewish kids from Manhattan having the best time of their lives. The Beastie Boys made their name being chaotic. irreverent, and loud. They rapped about fighting for their right to party. The media portrayed them as degenerates who were corrupting the youth. Meanwhile, their parents were hosting art collectors and interior design clients in Upper West Side apartments with paintings worth millions on the walls. Mike D's mother, Hester, was unfazed by the moral panic. She admitted, "I can understand why it's causing so much anxiety among parents, but it's really nothing to worry about. It's just the same as when I was young and my parents would get mad at me for listening to Frank Sinatra." The family wealth was not some vague rumor either. It was quantifiable. After the death of Hester Diamond in February 2020, Mike D and his brothers sold her old masters, contemporary furniture, contemporary art, crystals, and books together in a collection. The Fearless. The collection of Hester Diamond at Sotheby's sale brought in $26.7 million in January 2021. $26.7 million from a single auction. That is what was sitting in the family's estate. Mike D himself acknowledged the depth of the family's involvement in the art world. He said, "My mom and dad were completely integrated into the New York contemporary art world before I was born." He also shared that quite a number of the Rothkos that are sold at Sotheby's today at some point went through my parents. Their debut album, Licensed to Ill, released in 1986, became the first rap album to top the Billboard 200 chart, propelling them into the mainstream. The Beastie Boys went on to become one of the most influential groups in hip-hop history, selling over 40 million albums worldwide. But it all started in a Manhattan apartment that most people could not afford a single painting from. As of 2024, Mike D's net worth is estimated at $100 million. A fortune built on music, but founded on art world wealth that predated any record deal. The kid who grew up with de Koonings in the hallway became a hip-hop legend, and the financial safety net underneath him was never in doubt. The Alchemist is one of the most respected producers in hip-hop. His beats have soundtracked records by Nas, Mobb Deep, Eminem, and dozens of other elite MCs. But his origin story reads less like a hip-hop biography and more like a Hollywood memoir. The Alchemist, born Alan Maman, is a rapper and producer, and grew up with the rich kids in Beverly Hills. He even went to school with Angelina Jolie. Beverly Hills. Not the metaphorical Beverly Hills of aspiration. The actual 902 Delon. Mammon's father was a successful dentist in the Beverly Hills area, but when he decided he wanted to rap, the Alchemist left the 90210 area and started to spend more time with friends who were just as serious about hip-hop as he was. That decision, to deliberately walk away from the comfort and privilege of his environment, is what separates the Alchemist from many of the other names on this list. He did not use his wealth to cosplay as a rapper. He used his stability as a launchpad to dive headfirst into the culture. One of those friends was Scott Conn, another rap fan who also grew up rich. Scott is actor James Caan's son. Conn and the Alchemist formed a group called the Wooligans and were signed with Tommy Boy Records, but their album was never released. Scott decided to become an actor like his dad, and the Alchemist became known for producing beats for rappers like Mobb Deep and Nas. Think about that trajectory. Two rich kids from Beverly Hills form a rap group. One of them, the actor's son, goes back to acting. The other one, he burrows deeper into the underground, crafting some of the grittiest, most cinematic production in the history of East Coast hip-hop. The Alchemist's beats for Mobb Deep alone would secure his legacy. The work with Nas elevated it further, and then came Eminem. Alan Daniel Maman, aka The Alchemist, was a well-off kid growing up in Beverly Hills, 90210. He went to high school with Angelina Jolie before deciding to pursue his hip-hop career with good friend Scott Conn, son of actor James Caan. The Alchemist has done well for himself and is currently working as a DJ with Eminem, and is also signed to his label Shady Records as an in-house producer. The Alchemist earned every ounce of respect he commands in hip-hop. Nobody questions his credentials at the mixing board, but the fact remains, he grew up in a zip code synonymous with obscene wealth. His father was a Beverly Hills dentist, and his high school classmates included future A-list movie stars. His path to hip-hop supremacy started from a very different address than most of the artists he's produced for. What makes the Alchemist story fascinating, though, is that his privileged background never became a liability. While other rich rappers struggled to be taken seriously, the Alchemist channeled everything into craft. He became indispensable. He made himself so good that nobody cared where he came from. And in a genre that places enormous weight on authenticity and origin stories, that is the rarest achievement of all. In December 2012, a clip from an unaired MTV game show called Bustus hit the internet like a grenade tossed into a gas station. The person on the screen, an 18-year-old Tyga. The words coming out of his mouth, the kind that unravel a carefully constructed persona in seconds. The 23-year-old rapper, who is often reported as being from Compton, actually grew up in the Valley, where his parents drove a Range Rover and a Mercedes-Benz. The news comes from Tyga himself in unaired footage via an aborted 2008 MTV game show that was obtained by TMZ. On the show, Tyga said the now infamous words, "Grew up not too tough. Parents got a Range Rover. CL600, doing it big. Not too much hard, but I'm still street." For a rapper who had spent years positioning himself as a product of Compton, the same streets that birthed NWA and Kendrick Lamar, this was catastrophic. In numerous interviews, he has identified himself as being from Compton, the same gritty LA exurb that birthed NWA Game, and most recently Kendrick Lamar. The brand was the streets. The music videos were draped in toughness, and now here was footage of Tyga himself cheerfully explaining that his childhood was, by his own description, not that hard. Michael Ray Stevenson was born on November 19, 1989, in Compton, California, and raised there until he was about 11-12, before moving to adjacent Gardena. So it appears there is a thread of truth in the Compton origin. He was technically born there, but the implication from the Bustus footage was that his actual formative years looked nothing like the stories in his music. After the clip went viral, Tyga attempted damage control. After catching flack when TMZ unearthed the video years later, Tyga claimed he was simply reading from a script in the video. He also posted on Twitter, "When you 14 and ambitious, you don't give a FK about anything. Scripted TV, isn't that what we all live for? Ha 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 ha." The response was dismissive, almost playful, as if the entire thing was a non-issue. But the internet has a long memory, and the image of Tyga bragging about Range Rovers while claiming Compton roots never fully faded. The true nature of Tyga's background isn't all that clear, so it might not be fair to say that he was born filthy rich. Some have speculated that his comments on the show were satirical, playing up a character for a silly game show that never made it to air. Others take the footage at face value and point out that his parents' cars and Valley home suggest, at minimum, a level of comfort that does not match the image he sold to the public. What is clear is this: by the time Rack City was dominating the Billboard charts, and Tyga was one of the most visible rappers on the planet, nobody in his camp wanted anyone digging up old game show footage. The clip exposed the fragile scaffolding behind the persona, and while Tyga's career survived the scandal, he went on to sign with Young Money, date Kylie Jenner, and score more hits. The stain of the Bustus confession never fully washed out. To this day, where and how Tyga actually grew up remains a point of contention, an unresolved riddle at the center of a career built on street credibility. If there is a single entry on this list that represents the widest possible canyon between public image and private reality, it is Kid Rock. Long before he was performing live at Trump rallies across the nation, Kid Rock was born Robert James Ritchie to a wealthy family in Romeo, Michigan. Ritchie's father owned a number of local car dealerships, which brought in enough revenue to raise his children in a massive property, which included a private apple orchard and a stable of family-owned horses. Let that sink in. Kid Rock, the man who built his entire brand around being a blue-collar, middle American renegade, grew up on an estate. The Ritchie family resided in an expansive home set on considerable acreage, complete with an apple orchard and stables for horses, chores that came with living on their sprawling rural estate. The property itself was jaw-dropping. The Neo-Georgian colonial house spanned 5,628 square feet, with a 1,811 square foot lower level, and held 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. If the house, dubbed Applecrest Farm, ever seemed too cramped, a young Kid Rock could have taken a walk to the family's large on-site guest house, or their private 2-stall horse stable and tack room, or their personal tennis court. Kid Rock's father also owned a second home in Jupiter Island, Florida, down the road from Celine Dion and Tiger Woods. That is not middle class. That is not even upper middle class. That is wealth with a capital W. He was raised on a large property where his father owned a successful car dealership, providing a comfortable upbringing that contrasted with the gritty, blue-collar persona he would later cultivate in his music. The contrast is so stark it borders on parody. Kid Rock rapped and rocked his way through the 1990s and 2000s, projecting an image of a trailer park rebel, a man who clawed his way up from nothing. The reality was apple orchards, tennis courts, and luxury cars. During Kid Rock's formative years, he developed an interest in hip-hop and breakdancing, leading him to perform as a DJ in open mics and talent competitions across the greater Detroit area. His early career was built in the Detroit rap scene, where he rubbed shoulders with genuine street-level artists. Luckily, he managed to utilize some of his family money to purchase a 25% ownership stake in an independent record label, which greased the wheels for his early recordings. Family money, right there. While other rappers were scraping together change to book studio time, Kid Rock was investing in record labels with money from his father's car empire. In later years, Kid Rock crafted much of his public identity around working class and country imagery. Yet numerous biographical accounts reveal that his formative years were marked by relative wealth and resembled life on a suburban estate rather than the hardscrabble farm existence often associated with his brand. Even Kid Rock himself has occasionally let the mask slip. In a Rolling Stone interview, he acknowledged his financial position with the blunt admission, "It's a rich guy issue. No F-cuss left." That quote tells you everything. The persona was always a product, a carefully marketed brand designed to resonate with a working-class audience, delivered by a man who never had to worry about the working-class problems he sang about. Kid Rock is an American multi-instrumentalist, music producer, and actor who has a net worth of $175 million. The kid from the apple orchard did just fine. When Will Smith earns $20 million per movie and your mother is Jada Pinkett Smith, the narrative writes itself before you even spit a single bar. Not only was Jaden Smith born rich to actors Will and Jada Pinkett Smith, he is also one of the highest paid child actors in Hollywood. Jaden did not enter hip-hop as an underdog. He entered it as royalty. Jaden Smith began his musical career supported by Justin Bieber, when he featured on the 2010 single Never Say Never from the film The Karate Kid. The track made top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 and was even certified 5 times platinum in the US. His first major musical exposure came through a blockbuster film in which he was the star, paired with one of the biggest pop acts on the planet. That is not a come-up. That is a helicopter drop onto the summit. But Jaden is not the only child of a rap legend who walked a gilded path into the booth. Rapper O'Shea Jr., aka OMG, oh my goodness, is the son of rap legend and actor Ice Cube. Cube began his career as a member of the hip-hop group CIA and later joined NWA. Since then, he has accomplished more and is currently worth nearly $100 million. Ice Cube rapped about the streets of Compton with an intensity that helped define an entire genre. His son, OMG, never had to experience any of it. O'Shea Jr. never experienced these hardships. After all, his dad, who is also an actor, has a net worth of about $120 million. OMG made his rap debut on his father's album, I Am the West, and later recorded a mixtape entitled Jackin' for Beats. OMG has his own rap style that is a little more upbeat than his father's, even though he looks and sounds a lot like Ice Cube. The resemblance is uncanny, but the origin stories could not be more different. One grew up surrounded by gang violence and poverty. The other grew up surrounded by residual checks and Hollywood connections. Then there is Chet Hanks, perhaps the most surreal entry on this list. Rapper and actor Chet Hanks is the son of thespian pair Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson. Raised in a rich family, surrounded by influences from the world of the arts, he had a rocky adolescence and during high school was sent to a wilderness therapy program for troubled teens. Hanks went on to study theater at Northwestern University, and as an actor has secured recurring roles on TV series Empire, Shameless, and Your Honor. Chet Hayes, also known as Chet Hanks. This rapper was able to personally finance his own hip-hop career, thanks to very rich dad/actor Tom Hanks. The son of one of the most beloved actors in American history chose to pursue a career in hip-hop, with his father Tom being worth an estimated $300 million and actress mother Rita Wilson $100 million. The family has a combined net worth of around $400 million. $400 million, that is the financial foundation beneath a rapper, who was never going to go hungry regardless of whether anyone streamed a single track. And let's be direct about one more. Gabe Day-Lewis. Instead of following in his father's footsteps and becoming an actor, he has decided to become a rapper. His first single, titled Green Auras, uses J. Cole's Let Nas Down for its beat. The son of a 3-time Academy Award-winning actor, releasing a rap single over a J. Cole beat. The audacity alone is remarkable. Each of these figures illustrates the same tension. When you are born into Hollywood wealth, hip-hop becomes a choice, not a necessity. The hunger that fuels so much of the genre's greatest music is replaced by something else. Curiosity, rebellion, ego, or maybe just the desire to be something other than your parents' child. Whether that produces authentic art or glorified karaoke is a debate that will probably never be settled. There is a particular category of rich rapper that is difficult to criticize too harshly: the children of hip-hop pioneers. They were born into a world where rap was not just culture, it was the family business. Growing up in a house where Reverend Run is your dad and Russell Simmons is your uncle. Diggy Simmons comes from a bloodline of success. With frequent appearances on his father's reality show Run's House, Diggy was always in the limelight and was able to develop his own talent in music. Diggy definitely grew up on the rich side, seeing how his uncle is media mogul Russell Simmons, and father is the Reverend Run, a founding member of the influential hip-hop group Run DMC. The talent has definitely been passed down as Diggy, who is successful in his own right, continues his family's hip-hop legacy. Diggy himself addressed the privilege directly. He once stated, "To be born into a family that has money doesn't mean that I can't go on to do what I want to." It is a fair point. No one chooses the family they are born into, and Diggy's argument is that his access should not disqualify his effort. But Diggy's career stalled a few years later when he became mired down in overthinking the creative process. He turned to acting and fashion for a while, where he discovered that he didn't have to be perfect, because it's cool if it's flawed. That's awesome too. Diggy returned to rap with a single in August 2018 and an album slated to follow. As of this writing, it's unclear if Diggy will finally earn his own hip-hop stripes, but something tells us that even if he doesn't, his father's $70 million net worth, or his uncle, Def Jam founder Russell Simmons' $340 million haul will provide a nice safety net. That safety net is the key detail. For most rappers, failure means going back to whatever life existed before the music. For Diggy, failure means going back to a mansion. Then there's Lil Romeo, the kid who appeared on MTV Cribs before most of his peers had finished elementary school. Lil Romeo is not only a rapper, but also an actor and TV personality raised in New Orleans. He found fame as a musician in the early 2000s after signing with No Limit Records, then owned by his father Master P. He went on to release debut single My Baby in 2001, and later, the same year debut album Lil Romeo, which reached number 6 on the US Billboard 200, selling 100K copies in its first week and certified gold, a gold album before the first grade. The kind of success that most rappers spend entire careers chasing was handed to Lil Romeo before he could drive a car. Lil Romeo is the son of Master P, the rapper turned music mogul, who once described his goals to the New York Times as, "I guess I want to be the ghetto Bill Gates." Master P was the architect behind No Limit Records, one of the most prolific and commercially successful independent rap labels in history. The family's net worth is reportedly around $200 million. The irony here is thick. Master P's entire narrative was built on escaping the housing projects of New Orleans. He rapped about murders, robberies, and survival. His son Romeo inherited the empire that those stories built and never had to live any of them. Romeo had platinum records, a Nickelodeon sitcom, and $100 million family fortune before he was a teenager. And that is the pattern across this entire category. Jermaine Dupri, whose father Michael Mauldin was a Columbia Records executive. Jermaine Dupri is an American rapper, record executive, and entrepreneur. He first formed popular teen duo Criss Cross, and then in 1993 established his own record label, So So Def. As an artist, his albums Life in 1472 and Instructions earned him notoriety. In 2013, Dupri replaced Randy Jackson as Mariah Carey's talent manager, and 5 years later, he was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Dupri is the son of Columbia Records executive Michael Mauldin and grew up in College Park, part of the Atlanta metropolitan area. Dupri's access to the music industry was not earned through grinding on the streets. It was inherited through blood. His father was an executive at one of the biggest record labels on earth. When the young Jermaine got his start as a dancer for Houdini, it was not because he was discovered on a street corner. it was because the doors of the music industry were already open for him. The Dynasty Kids exist in a gray zone. They have genuine talent. Nobody can deny what Jermaine Dupri accomplished as a producer and label head. Diggy's music has its moments. Lil Romeo had legitimate hits, but the runway they launched from was paved with gold. And that changes the equation no matter how you frame it. If you thought LMFAO was just a party rap duo making silly dance music, you missed a critical detail about the family tree behind the shuffling. The members of LMFAO grew up quite wealthy in Pacific Palisades. Redfoo's father is legendary Motown founder Berry Gordy, whose wealth was estimated at $325 million in 2009. Berry Gordy, the man who built Motown Records, the label that launched the careers of Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, The Supremes, The Temptations, and Michael Jackson. That is not just wealth, that is a dynasty that shaped the entire landscape of American popular music. Born in Los Angeles, the rapper is son of Berry Gordy Jr., founder of the Motown record label, and his writer-producer mother Nancy Lee Visca. The pair boast a combined net worth of over $400 million. $400 million when Redfoo and Sky Blue were shuffling across stages and rapping about champagne showers and party rocking. The money behind them was generational on a scale that dwarfs most entries on this list. They just talk about partying, so they are able to avoid any authenticity issues. And that is the genius, whether intentional or not. LMFAO never pretended to be from the streets. They never claimed hardship. Their music was about one thing: having a good time. And when your father is worth $325 million, having a good time is exactly what you can afford to do indefinitely. Redfoo released debut solo record Party Rock Mansion in 2016, having previously been a day trader, and even featured on Business TV's CNBC's Mad Money with Jim Cramer. A day trader on CNBC. Talking about markets and money with Jim Cramer. That is the life of a rapper whose bank account was never dependent on album sales. The difference between LMFAO and many other rich rappers is honesty by omission. They did not lie about their backgrounds. They simply never made their backgrounds part of the conversation. The music was the distraction. The party was the brand. And behind the party was a Motown fortune that would have sustained them regardless of whether a single record ever sold. Many hip-hop artists have rapped about life experiences like starting from the bottom, the struggle, and the drug game. The come-up story has always been a selling point for many artists through the years. Some of your favorites like Lil Wayne, B.I.G., Jay-Z, Nas, 50 Cent, and more have experienced this and have shared it through their music. The come-up is not just a narrative device. It is the foundation of hip-hop's identity. The genre was born in the South Bronx in the 1970s as a voice for communities that had been ignored, underfunded, and marginalized. When Biggie rapped about his studio apartment in Brooklyn, it resonated because it was real. When Jay-Z described the Marcy Projects, people felt it in their bones. However, there is a new trend popping up in hip-hop culture of young, incredibly wealthy artists aiming to be the next big rapper. For many of these young artists, like Diggy Simmons and Jaden Smith, the struggle of the streets was never a reality. As celebukids or rich kids, hip-hop is simply a way to express themselves in an art form or follow their father's or family's legacy. And that raises the question this entire video has been circling. Does it matter? If the music hits, does it matter where the rapper grew up? The Alchemist proves that a rich kid can become indispensable to the culture. Kid Rock proves that a rich kid can build a $175 million empire by pretending he was not rich. Lil Romeo proves that a rich kid can have a gold album in first grade and then pivot to a Nickelodeon career. Each path is different, and each tells a different story about the intersection of wealth and art. But the one thing that ties every entry on this list together is this: when you have money, the stakes are different. The risk calculus shifts. A failed album does not mean going back to poverty. A label rejection does not mean the end of the dream. The safety net changes everything. And in a genre built on the absence of a safety net, that distinction matters more than most people want to admit. The rappers on this list are not frauds. Many of them have genuine talent and have contributed meaningfully to hip-hop, but their starting lines were drawn in a different place than the artists who made this genre what it is. The Biggies, the Tupacs, the Nas's of the world did not have apple orchards or Rothko paintings or fathers who founded Motown. They had bars, and they had hunger, and they had no plan B. So the next time you hear a rapper talk about coming from nothing, do a little digging. You might find out that nothing included a guest house, a horse stable, and a trust fund.